You mentioned that you were a big wrestling fan, and I had forgotten that you did the theme song for Bray Wyatt. You guys have played at NXT before. Talk about kind of the WWE connection, and let's start with how you ended up performing in NXT a few years ago.
Okay, so yeah, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I'm not on like a passive level on love. It's a primary, as Max knows, primary point of my existence. So yeah, I mean, it was always a goal of ours to try to get in the door somehow. We always knew guys working. Like the wrestler Brody King, who you work with, is like one of my closest friends in music that we knew far before wrestling.
Oh, cool.
There's a lot of guys we've known just like wrestling independently and such. But long story short, we wanted to, our label was like pitching our song as like the theme for NXT. They bid on it, and then we kind of pushed like, tell them we're literally down to do anything. Like we don't care what the scenario is. We will do anything. And so literally, I think it was 2 days before the fucking show, they're like, can you guys perform? And we're like, okay, well, what does that entail? And they're kind of like, I don't know. So we just figured it all out on the fly. And that was also no click or anything, which they were kind of like shaky about, because if literally I just stopped playing, like the entrance to the show would just stop. I mean, there was like no like contingency plan for how it would work. So we did those performances, and then got to meet Triple H. Was insane, and he's really into metal and stuff too. I mean, he showed up. We did this practice the night before at like midnight, the night before their pay-per-view, and this tiny little like dingy Brooklyn practice spot. And he shows up. I mean, he just showed up and just stood there and watched us practice these songs, and like couldn't have been cooler about it. And so it was an amazing experience. And then that kind of didn't quite parlay into the Bray Wyatt thing. The Bray thing was more just guerrilla action on my part. He's into music. He's way deeper into music than I think people even know. He knows about a lot of shit. He sends me like, he would send me like Ministry B-sides that I didn't even like know about. And like he was deep into heavy music and electronic leaning industrial music. So yeah, he followed us on Twitter, and I just shot him a message. I knew that he was off TV, and I kind of tried to play a little bit like dumbass and not, act like, oh, I'm this giant fan, because I feel like that's kind of like a repellent. But I was just kind of like, hey, like, I see you haven't been there for a while. Like, if you're planning on coming back doing something different, like, we are the ones 100%. There's nobody that can do it the way that we can do it. And he gave me his number, and we talked, and that was how we did the first theme, which was like kind of supposed to be, started as its own thing, and then it turned into like more of a half hybrid cover of his previous song, which was like, the cool fucking. So he, that was for the Fiend character. And then, he got all that happened. He got let go. We stayed really close friends. And he just told me, like, this was like years ago at this point, but like close to when he was let go, we should do a song, like, regardless of where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do. So we worked on it for a long time. And man, like, I don't know how much of those kind of stories he would want told, but he is a true, like, he goes in with them and he says, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
And it is hard. And we were on the receiving end of some of that hard. I think that, it maybe didn't put us in the greatest light, because we kind of made this song in the shadows with him. And when he came back, he was kind of like, this is the song. Like, this is what we're doing. And about an hour before he came out on SmackDown or whatever, I was told it was the song. So, and it was absolutely awesome. So, I mean, he made a lot of our wrestling dreams come true. And the WWE people in general have like treated us awesome and just been really cool about mostly everything,
Obviously, you're probably, blown away when you heard that he had passed. Sounds like you guys were friends.
100%. I mean, we definitely at the end were tight. I mean, we would, I don't know, we would talk on the phone all the time about stuff. He's a super creative guy. I think he's like way more interesting and creative than people know, or even, hyperbole can state. I think the part of that whole thing he was the most interested in was the character elements and like what could be done that was different. And he had so many cool ideas that, you know, don't really get out there or get over the line or whatever. That I think, you know, he just was ingenious when it came to that stuff. And not only that, what I found was like, he was so humble. He would ask me like, what do you think would be cool, essentially? And it's like, why the fuck are you asking me? I'm nobody from nowhere. But he was just that kind of person. He wanted to learn. He wanted input. He wanted to keep building the monster from people that he thought, you know, had cool creative input and were into similar things, which we were. And he gave us a ton of leeway. He just let us kind of, even with the entrance to that song, I remember I wrote him this whole thing because it was like, you know, it was just, I don't know if you've heard the song, but it's just like this kind of singular piano note that like creeps up from the background.
Yeah.
And what we were trying to figure out was like, okay, how do we do like a wrestling stinger, like something that's really memorable, but like, how do we do the inverse of that? So it was like Michael Myers. It's like it comes from really far away. So imagine you're in the arena and you just hear that little piano note, like almost like you can barely even hear it. You're almost like wondering if it's even there. And then it creeps up and creeps up. And so he was just creative, man. Awesome. And the greatest guy ever. So yeah, it really sucks. It still really sucks, to be honest. It's brutal.